Hey, everybody, how you doing today? So just as I'm waiting for Janiece to accept my invitation, everybody who's here, I'd like to say thank you for coming in. Everybody who is going to watch this in the future, again, thank you for coming in and thank you for watching this. Hoping to have a really interesting, insightful, enlightening conversation with Janiece, who happens to be a follower, a devotee, a daughter of Oya, and I think she's in. Hey, how you doing?
Hello, hello. Yeah.
Hello. Hold on, I'm gonna turn this up now, and I'm gonna reframe. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna reframe so that I'm actually in frame because it's cutting off the top of my head. There we go.
It's all good.
Yeah. I'm in it. I'm in the picture now. How you doing? You all right?
Yes, I'm happy. It's Friday. It's also Jakuta Day, so happy Sweet Friday. I'm like, this is a perfect time for this conversation.
Yeah, 100%. I think, there's definitely a sense of change, in the year 2025. And I think, it's perfect timing for me and you to be talking, for me to have discovered you and for you to discover me. So I'm grateful, you know.
Yeah.
So whereabouts are you at the moment, Jenny?
So I'm currently in Mexico City, over here in some suburb eating papaya to my liking, basking in like the 70-degree weather while everyone in the States is like freezing.
Oh my God.
And you're in the UK,
Yes.
yes?
So not basking in, the weather like you are. So it is what it is. It is what it is, So just to get to it, like I just wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, Janiece, who are you? What's your story? Who is Janiece? Because I was gonna go into a long diatribe about, who you were before you came on, but I think it's probably better if if it comes straight from the source.
We're just diving right in. All right, cool. So I am Janiece. I travel right now, but at the core, I'm an entrepreneur who loves to help entrepreneurs get started in whatever their thing is, whatever their destiny is calling them to do. There's always this disconnect of, I need money to start my thing. I need money to get my building. I need money to, or the right connect. And I'm like, no, there are so many ways that we can get started right now so the ball gets rolling. And so I like to call myself like that entrepreneurial death doula to just help you transition into that space. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm also an artist. I love to paint and draw and anything that my mind kind of creates. I love to, create in this physical world too. More officially, I'd say I've always drawn. If you ask my dad, me drawing on like furniture and dressers was not appreciated, but now I'm trying to put a proper vehicle around it. So outside of that, I've been traveling abroad for the last year or so. I'm born and raised in Southern California. I'm a Valley girl at heart, but I've been in Atlanta for the past about 5 years. I think that's home. Georgia, I think that's home. So we'll get back to it eventually, but I've been traveling for the past year.
Because yeah, one thing that was really interesting to me was like when I was looking at your page, after I'd seen that you were a daughter of Oya, like something to me said like it's so obvious, in terms of like, the amount of different things you have going on, the amount of different businesses you have going on. Like you just said, you help entrepreneurs as well. And we'll get into it more and more, but there's a lot of things in your, just like who you are at your core, that says to me, daughter of Oya. And I guess the question is, were you always conscious of this connection, or is it something which you got into, and how did you get into it?
Into it being,
As
Orisa,
in,
POV.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so not at all. Even now, a year and some change later, I'm like, well, I'd say 2 years of knowing that this energy is very potent within me. No, it's not a conscious thing whatsoever. I feel like others are able to see it and be like, oh, you are, oh yeah. And then when I look back over how I move, being the first to graduate college within my family, being the first to leave and, not really come back home because I'm out here just traveling the world, you know, um, lots of first and lots of dragging people along with me. Um, yeah, it's not a conscious thing. Oya is such a chess player within my life. And
Hmm.
so when she's like, let's move, I'm like, all right, bet, before it turns into the chaotic storm, I feel like she has me in the eye where it's just peaceful. And as long as I can stay ahead of that and in that eye of the storm, it's fun. Like the changes, the passions, the projects, me being in all the places at once, I'm like, I'm having fun. And if you want to join me, then let's have fun together.
How does it feel though? How does it feel when you get drawn to go to a new direction? Because I read again on your social media, you were going somewhere and you were like, Spirit told me to go, I'm going, you know? And it feels like you're very comfortable with that. You're very comfortable with leading or being led by instinct, by spirit. Now, has it always felt that way? And how does it, how does it actually feel for you? Like, is there a sense of excitement, a sense of fear? What's going on inside of Janiece when you get led in these directions?
What a good question. I would love to say it's definitely a muscle. It's definitely
Mm,
a muscle that I've had to strengthen over time. Um, I've always been down for the plot, to just go for it. I feel like I was surrounded by a lot of love and encouragement growing up. So when I wanted to do certain things, I don't feel like I was met with a lot of resistance. I felt like I was surrounded by a lot of adults who were kind of just like, yeah, let's go for it. My mom, my big brother, my father, like they champion me. My grandparents, they love the ball of Janiece. And so I feel like they've poured into me and they've really invested into it, even if they didn't have the language or the understanding to be like, I don't know what you're really doing here, but I trust her. So that allowed me to develop the muscle of just like when I get these inklings or when I get told to do things, like why would I not? It hasn't failed me yet. And now I feel like it's a game. It's almost like, okay, yes, I'm being called to not have a lease and go travel to a country I've never been before, where the media within the United States has portrayed it as cartel, drugs, this and that, just horrible. But I was called to go there. And so I'm like, well, we're going. Well, I've never been straight, never been straight afar yet. So why would
yeah,
I not go? So yeah.
yeah. I could just see that decision. You're like, yeah, we're going, and I could just see it percolating inside
Because
you.
here's the thing though, because you never get the full plan. You're like, why are we going? Because I'm also like, I'm very a conceptual, like, I need to understand the plan to be full
Yeah,
in. And with spirit, it doesn't work that way. So I may be a project manager where I'm able to build out the plan for others. And, we're not moving forward until this makes
yeah.
sense. And with spirit, it doesn't work that way. And so there's just like, as long as I can stay in the middle, of like I'm doing my part and I'm planning appropriately. I'm getting my visas, my passports. I'm calming my nervous system so
Hmm.
I'm not hyperventilating. And I'm thankful for my friends who listen to me vent and get it out. Cause I'm a panic for like 2 seconds and then we gonna go. But
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a have to freak out.
So you have that moment because with me, I find that it's something which I'm opening up to more and more and learning to understand that I read somewhere. Guy said, at the end of the day, we're on this ball of of dirt, this rock, called Earth, and it's floating through the the multiverse, is floating through the void of eternity, and we really don't have the control that we think we have,
Not at all.
you know. But then at the same time, the fact that I'm here and we're here, just on a basic level, kind of means that, you know, there is some guidance that's been given to us already. Like we are, we are protected,
Yeah.
for one of a better word, and it's something which, yeah, like just as you're saying, it spoke to me, because it's something which I'm sort of really learning now at the moment to, you know, sometimes put away that mind that's, you know, telling me I need to know everything. I need to work
Yeah.
everything out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because everything has worked out up until this point. So, you know,
Because when you look at the track record, which is
yeah,
also why when friends are like, yeah, she's having her freak out moment, but I know her track record. I trust Janiece, I trust her Ori, I trust her decision making. You know, like I've done really well for myself up to here. So I love to surround myself with people who allow me to have that moment of freak out, but then they're like, but you got this because you haven't failed yet, you know?
yeah, yeah. Okay. So, so to get into the Orisha, which, you know, is kind of what we you know, we came to
Mm-hmm.
talk about. Could you uh like just give me a summation, or, you know, an outline of your journey to become initiated, and what does it mean to be initiated, as, you know, with Oya having your head, what does it mean for people who may not know or may not have heard of what that term?
Yeah. So I'd love to start at the beginning
Please
because
do.
it does have layers. So I was raised and born into a Christian tradition, Baptist, and I took it to the head because I learned later that I am just a spiritual person who is highly connected, and I needed a container for that, you know? So throughout my life, 2020 came then, and Girl Trek had the Daughters of campaign. And that's when I was incredibly, incredibly inspired to really dig into who I am. You know, who would I come from? Where do we come from? And so I would be on the phone for hours with my grandmother, putting in that work, learning about our ancestors and our family tree, as well as on my dad's side, my big mama, learning and sitting with her because I was actually in Mississippi during that time. And yeah, the best way I could say it is those on the spiritual realm were very excited that the names were being called, that, you know, when we start speaking about the traumas, the blessings, you know, the intricacies of our lineages, you know, that's moving energy. So they're over here in the spiritual realm, like, it's tagged me in, like, it's time to go. It's time to start pulling people into their destiny because they know where they come from. So it's starting to click that, oh, she's a fifth generation artist. So she doesn't need some institution to validate her desire to paint, to draw, to create, you know? She has it in her. So they're starting to make themselves known around me. And my spiritual, I'm blasted wide open, we'll say that. In terms of my understanding of the world, of the spiritual realm, of our connection to it. And so with that, I felt like my ancestors guided me towards Ifa, which is the traditional, we'll say that, the traditional culture of the Isheshe. Sorry, my words are getting mixed up now. Isheshe is the traditional practice of the Yoruba land, so present day Nigeria. And so with that, it fit like a glove. I felt like it had the specific language that I needed for the experiences that I was going through. It made sense to me of like, oh, you mean years ago when I was going through this, they had words for it. And so I was enthralled by it. And so they led me to good teachers because it is very easy to get caught up in, you know, some bullshit within these traditions as they become more mainstream. And so I was led to really good teachers who were patient with all of my questions, who were able to guide me towards, you know, my destiny. And so my first rites of passage led me to learning that I was Omo Shango, first and foremost. And so when it comes to Orisha or Ifa, we have Ifa, which is the overall understanding of the cosmos, right? And we have divination, which is understanding of, you know, they're not going to give you all the cheese, man. We're not going to, you know, tell you all of who you are, but we're going to give you pieces of it. So you have the road that is open to you to live a good life. So then you have your ancestors within Ifa who support you on this. And then you have the Orisha, which is the essences, you know, deified peoples, like people, I'll let you get into the Orisha, but when it comes to the Orisha, they are energies that help us within this world. And so first learned I was almost Shango, and within that, I'm still learning. I'm on the mat constantly. And that led me to Ifa. And I was like, we locked in the divination part of it, helping people be aligned with their destinies. Like, heck yeah, let's go. And that led me to my first initiation within Ifa about 2.5 years ago. And I was like, what is initiation? You know, we got to go all the way to Nigeria for it. There's this whole thing. It's a lot of money. It's a huge investment and a lot of preparation that goes into it. And so I learned to stop asking questions and to just go for it. And what I learned is it is a very intricate process of revealing that energy that we carry throughout this life. You know, when we get readings, that might be the energy that we have for the season. When we get, our hand of Ifa, that may be, what did we come in with? But then it's like taking it up a notch of like, now I'm here. I choose this life. Let's go. Who rocks with me? What should I stay away from so I live a good life? What should I focus on? And so that Ifa initiation really propelled me into my destiny. And so on the mat during that, I learned that Oya was actually my crown Orisha. And she was like, welcome home. Hi, hello. Glad you went through all your processes to get here, And it was so strong to where my godfather on the compound was like, yeah, we could do this now. You want to do your initiation to Oya too? And I was like, whoa, hold on. Do I have to? And it was like, so no. But we highly suggest you doing this within the year because, again, when you get initiated, you are almost coming into union with a certain energy. They put medicine in your head. So they come and live with you. We have shrines and things outside of us that we can go to and commune with these spirits. But it's like, now we're going to go through this whole process to where they come and live with us. I am the shrine. I am an Oya shrine. I am an Ifa shrine. Okay.
Sorry to interject there, but can you, I think we need to go into that a little bit, yeah? I am the shrine. I am the Ifa shrine. They come and live with you. Could you elaborate what you mean by that? In terms of they came and lived with you, or they're living with you, and yourself, your body, your spirit being a shrine.
Yeah, because without giving away too much, because this is something truly that everyone must go through if it is your path and if it is your calling, to experience within yourself. But we have our shrines, which are consecrated altar spaces, right? They are consecrated pieces in which we call down spirit through, washing of sacred, what is it called? Pieces of the shrine. We wash it, we pray over it, we appease it, we feed it. This is a living thing within our homes now. And so, yeah, I might have Oya in my home, but imagine doing that to our bodies. And so we go through this whole process of, spiritually washing ourselves, making sure our mind is right, making sure that we are consecrated within ourselves. So this spirit can come, this energy can come and activate within us, because if it's in you, it's in you, which is, again, why it's like, you can't just be out here willy-nilly. Oh, I'm just going to get initiated, or I'm just going to go do this. You can wreck your whole life like that, messing with things that are not for you. But if it is for you, which, again, this was a part of the destiny that I chose to have Oya and Ifa and et cetera, those that come after that, come and live with me. But yeah, to finish up the path of like, that's what got me to the mat to meet with Oya. It wasn't my first reading and all of a sudden we're locked in, Oya is my crown. It was like, no, there were so many levels to that. And I have to give honor to the ancestors, the elders that were able to take care of me, the teachers that poured into me, Ori that chose this. Like, there are so many levels and so many pieces that brought me to the mat that I give thanks to first,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Just on that subject, sorry, because I think it's fascinating what you were saying about, yourself being a living altar, almost. And, I was having a conversation with one of my mates the other day, and he was talking about how he feels as he progresses spiritually, he has to almost purify his thoughts in his mind and his physicality as much as possible. Like there's certain things he can't do anymore
Yeah.
because of that, progression. Would you, yeah, again, it seems that, that, you relate to that. And I guess, are there similar things which you, and obviously you don't need to say it because I know it's personal, but are there similar things which you can't do, which you maybe were given as, these are things you can't do, but also things which you've just learned as you've gone through your spiritual journey that I need to cut this,
I would say yes. And this is, I was give what it's called is given taboos, things that we are just spiritually allergic to. Stay away from if you want to live a good life. And so one of the very, very basic ones as a priest is like respect your elders, respect the people on the mat with you. That is one that we should be doing regardless. And when you think about the energies that we're with, because with Ifa, it's living in harmony and listening and being a cornerstone within the community. So who are you to not listen to your elders? Who are you to not respect the people sitting next to you? And so, yes, like what your brother was saying, there's certain things that you tap into. You're like, oh, my life is easier when I do this. So for example, me personally, I love going to the gym. As an ex-athlete, my whole life. But now it's like I need that to calm my thoughts because it channels the energy. And so even when you add it to my spirituality, it allows me to, focus that energy, calm the thoughts because, hey, when you're able to hear and be clairvoyant, it's like, who's talking? I can't do that when my mind is running amok thinking about my business, thinking about my art, thinking about travels, thinking about this and that. It's like I have to have enough discipline to quiet my own thoughts, And so to be able to go to the gym, be able to do whatever I need to do that, like it's a must. It becomes a taboo. It becomes like spiritual hygiene of like, I need to be doing my spiritual baths. I need to be doing all the things that allow me to tap in because as like your brother said, as we progress and as we compound all the Aje and all the blessings within our head, all of the people and ancestors in Orisa that want us to do well, it could be very easy to like go left, which is also why we tell people to take their time. We don't need to be doing 10 Orisha unless that's what you're told. There is no rush in getting these Orisha. There's no rush in getting all these shrines and diving, headfirst into this if it's not organic, because having that much energy just living within you, if you can't control it, if you can't hone it in and know how to direct it, it can overtake you. And we've seen that. We've seen those running back to Western religion of being like, I claim the blood of Jesus, and there's nothing wrong with the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it in response to being scared out of spirituality, I feel like that's something to investigate,
Yeah, 100%. And there's something which you mentioned about, going to the gym, which I'm definitely going to talk to you later about. Just because I kind of had an epiphany the other day as I was, in the gym going hard, and I realized, there's a spiritual element to this that, that people don't really realize. Now, Oya is obviously known as in some spaces as the warrior woman, she's a hot Orisha, and she, and by hot I mean like volatile, there's an energy to her, a temperament to her, and but also as well, like I heard that she is related to sports women or sports people in general, and athletic people. I don't know if that's true, but is that something which you reckon is that an element of Oya? And just to round up this rambling question, who would you, if somebody if somebody was to ask you to just give a description of Oya, who Oya is, what would you say?
To answer your first question in terms of athletes and her being, related to athletes and people just needing movement. I've yet to hear that actually. So thank you for letting me know. I wouldn't be surprised because, you know, I feel like we in the diaspora love to attribute this metaphysical, like we like to like dig deeper into like what does it really mean, like if she's transitioned and changed, like what does that mean in terms of movement within our bodies and this and that. Hell yeah, if I got all this energy moving in me, I need something to emote it. Which is why when people ask me like, oh, you're an artist, and I'm like, nah, I just feel a lot and I need a vehicle to get it out. And yes, I was not the best soccer player, but I loved it because it was just a way to move my body, you know. But I feel like that lives within a lot of these energies, you know. When you catch the spirit, that's what I'm trying to say. I feel like it transcends Oya because when you catch the spirit and you feel that within you, and you have to move, you have to fall out. If you've ever been to like a bimbe or a drumming, you know, session or anything, it's like you gotta move it. You have to move it. And when you get into like the energy, the healing aspects of it, and how when we feel emotions and it sits in our body, it's like when it stays and gets stuck, that's how we get sick. And so this is also why I'm like, no, I see that being an aspect of spirit in general, because we have to move that stuff out of ourselves, you know. And so whether that's running, whether that's constantly yoga, I know a lot of people are into yoga nowadays because it's a little bit on the calmer side and you don't have to go to the gym or Pilates, or you're not able to go to the drumming session every week to be able to like dance it out, you know. That's the movement part for me. So then the second piece that she talked about, aspects of Oya, I know we talk about her being this like fierce, rah, rah, rah woman. That's not my experience. I would really say that is not my experience. Again, there are a lot of Orisha that walk with me and that I've had the pleasure of like communing with. And there are other ones who are definitely like, nah, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And they're very front and present, very conscious, you know, versus, oh yeah, she's a chess player. She's the one sitting in the back quiet. She's the one who's like, I need you in here, you know? So we talk about her being the Orisha of the marketplace. And I do love that aspect of her, because even then, I feel like when we think about women in business, especially Black women in business, we think of, what's that movie? Think Like a Man, with Raji P. Henson. But like, I don't need no man. I'm strong, independent. You know, I'm cutthroat. I'll jump over and say, fuck my best friend to get to the top. Like, that's not it at all. I feel like when we say, or do you show the marketplace, we don't understand the market. And so I feel like we've come to this really perverted version of business because of capitalism, because of all the things. But I'm like, to be within a marketplace, if you've ever gone to a market outside of the United States where it's hustling, it's bustling, it's busy, but everybody knows their role. And so to be the Orisha who don't, like, that's their domain, you have to walk in and you have to have a certain finesse to you. There's a certain smile that you have to come in with, a certain peace, a certain, you know, understanding of like, oh, when people have problems, I can't be the one to freak out. I have to be able to, first of all, listen. So a woman who's rah, rah, listen, that's not a state of listening. You know, that's not a state of problem solving. That's not a state of, hey, Booth 22, where's Sandra and her family? They're not here today, you know? Oh, they died. Okay, well, let's make sure that we as a community show up for them, you know? The marketplace is a community, and it doesn't work without others showing up. And so when we talk about Oya on the marketplace, I think about her understanding community, her understanding the market, like partnership, you know? And that's another aspect too of like, oh yeah, stay with a man. And not in the like loosey-goosey way, but it's like she valued partnership and she learned from it. You know, she came out of her relationship with Shango having domain over the Thunderbolts, you know, because she was able to be in exchange and have a strong one next to her. When she was with Ogun, you know, she was able to learn his secrets of, not Smith, what is it called? What is it called? What is the word?
Are you talking about fire, blowing the fire, drumming, lightning?
What is the what is the blacksmith, you know, the skills of the blacksmith,
Okay.
you know?
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like there's an essence of being the Orisha of the marketplace, having finesse, having a certain grace to you, you know, listening, being able to come in. Because again, when I talk about her being this transitionary, people love to say that she is the wind. However, the eye of the storm, that's peace. And that's what I've
Oh, could you
experienced.
say
I've
that again,
experienced.
please? That was deep. No,
Oh
because the way you
yeah.
just put it. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, she's the wind. She's all of it. But in the eye of the storm is peace. And that is nothing but what I've experienced. When I go to my shrine, when I go to
Mm.
talk to her, she's not yelling and she's not beating me up. She's like, Janiece, you don't need, like, no, it's always just, let's go over here. And when I listen the first time, I stay within the eye of the storm. When I don't listen, which doesn't happen often anymore, that goes back to our original, like what we talked about earlier, of like, how do you maneuver all the change? I listen the first time. So it doesn't have to turn into this chaotic, big old smack in the back of the head. So I'll pause there.
There's a lot, and there's so many things you just said there that was just really awesome. You know, from the marketplace, like the because, you know, yes, if you've ever seen, you're talking about markets outside of the US or whatever, like, you know, there's markets in Nigeria, for instance. Yeah, you go to a market in Lagos or whatever, and you see it, and from the outside it may look like there's so much going on. Oh, this is chaos, but there is a deep order going on there. You know,
Yes.
there's an understanding, and it makes so much sense for the person who is the owner of the market to be the one who is calm and peaceful and sort of like above it all, and able to understand that, you know, the complexity of the market, the complexity of all these things that's happening. Now, I wanted to ask you about how, so there's two things. I want to ask about how the Orisha, specifically Oya, but the Orisha in general, yeah, kind of the need for them needs modern times, you know, because there are two things which you spoke about, which I would like to sort of like expand upon a little bit more. Firstly, there's the thing about movement and, you know, that being in our bodies, and, you know, like there was a tribe in, I think it was in South America somewhere, and there was a guy who went to visit them, and, you know, these guys were 50-year-old guys who were running like marathon runners, and everybody was like, was super cut. You know, there wasn't an obese person there, in this tribe, and obviously they were living in the ways that we were living thousands of years back. So, you know, and the whole idea of obesity being a disease that kills a lot of people is a modern disease. You know, there's more people, apparently, I don't know if this is true, but apparently there's more people who die from overeating or who die from eating the wrong foods than who die from not eating enough food in this modern age. So it's almost like a modern ailment. So the question is, how do the Orisha and Oya specifically help in terms of these modern ailments that we have in regards to health, but then also in regards to the relations between masculine and feminine? Because, as you just mentioned, yeah, one thing that I love about, you know, sort of like the Orisha is that there are so many sort of like so many archetypes of femininity, you know, in terms of like the, you know, Oya, Oshun, Oba, etc., etc. And then, you know, so many archetypes of masculinity, you know, Shango, Ogun, etc., etc. And I think it's just beautiful because it allows for a wider expression of those two
Yes.
energies. So to round up my question on health, how do you think the Orisha kind of help, and how do the Orisha and Oya kind of help within relationships, or how could they help, I guess, with these modern day problems?
For sure. I love the second question. I'm like, I have wrote think pieces on that one. So before we get to it, when it comes to the
Yep.
health, this is just my opinion, obviously, and what I've noticed. And so Ifa, all of these traditions of our ancestors, these indigenous practices, they are nature based, you know. They honor and they are in harmony with nature, or they should be. And so when it comes to the perversion of them and the overconsumption of food and greed and you know, it being almost a health status for me to be able to eat any and everything I want at any point in time, like whose is that? Because it's not
Mm.
ours. You know, being on the compound, there's this level and balance of there's enough work to be put into where I am moving enough, and then we eat.
Mm.
But then we're still moving, and then we're still like there's still like cycles happening, you know, and it's in harmony with the world, like the what is it called? With the earth. And so when it comes to what we eat, it's usually something that way back when was hunted and gathered, you know, and we had it for the week or for the day. It wasn't something, and we fed the community with it, you know. It wasn't mine to where Trader Joe's isn't it, or not Trader Joe's. I like Trader Joe's. I feel like they're one of the better ones. We'll say Whole Foods or whatever because they're owned by Prime. But it's like, you know, having too much and to the point where it's, you know, going bad and they rather throw it away than give it to those struggling to, you know, without houses. And so that doesn't exist within our traditions. What do you mean we're not taking care of our folks, you know? Everybody has their role. So you're either chopping up some meat and you've done your work so you can eat. But just to have excessively and then to throw away, like how is that in harmony? That means that we're over harvesting. That means that we're taking more than we have the ability to do it. So when it comes to our health, yeah, I'm not saying everybody's meant to be lean green machines that are cut, ripped, and all that jazz, but a healthy balance to where we're not overstuffed and dying of heart disease and, you know, obesity. And but again, they profit off of that. You know, this Ozempic trend, you know, this they're profiting off of it. So that's that. Are we good on the health piece before we dive into the
Let's go.
archetypes?
Let's go.
No, because I'm a lover girl at heart. And so all these podcast bros, all of these people with opinions about Black women, about Black men, about being together. And I'm just like, yo, we have the blueprint of good relationship. We have the blueprint from the Orisa and Ifa and Sacred Odu. Like we have the blueprint of how to be in harmony with each other. Why are we beefing? Why are we beefing? Why are you not protecting me? Why am I not your biggest champion advocate? So anyways, I really enjoyed learning more about Oya because when we talk about Oshun, especially the mainstream pieces of her, it's like children and marriage and love and beauty and blah. And it's like, as somebody who, you know, turned 30 and was unpartnered, but was traveling the world, was starting businesses, my grandmother, who did not have the opportunity to do that, is cheering me on. She's like, Lightning McQueen, let's go, let's go. And so it was like, but what happens when you don't see yourself in major media though? And you have all of these old societal norms in your head of like, you need to be settling down. You need to settle for anybody who's willing to give you a ring. And I'm like, no, one of the greatest Orisha, you know, of all times is out here starting businesses and kept a man, you know, and she valued partnership and was elevated to like marriage king because of it, because she was able to wait, because she was able to be within her lane, you know? And so when I think about Ogun, that energy has been very present lately, you know? And I think about the creator part of it, you know? The artsy fartsy and you know, something that I don't feel like a lot of men, especially Black men within our community, were able to articulate, you know, when it comes to men in the arts, men in that creator space. It's like it wasn't encouraged when it's like, wait, but one of the greatest Orisha of our time, like that was who he was. And because of it, we got technology. Because of it, we got, you know, what is it called? Technologies, we got cities, we got travel, we got, you know, the inner workings of how all this, you know, works. And I'm just like, yeah, so I'm gonna pause there because I can go on and on. Okay, even Shango, of like the womanizer, the one who had all the stereotypical piece of it. I'm like, people love to talk about polygamy, you know, nowadays, but I'm like, in some traditions it worked. In some traditions, it's honored and it's needed. To feed communities, to feed, you know, it worked for them. And we have blueprints of it. So we're over here trying to mismatch and shame and judge and this and that. And I'm like, nah, there are whole blueprints of where it worked very well, you know, where people thrived and were happy and lived well lives because of it. Tell me you don't know what you're talking about without telling me you don't know what you're talking about, you know?
Do you think the disconnection that a lot of people have from, a lot of Black people specifically have from, you know, their genetic, traditional belief systems, has caused, means that, you know, they're not able to they're not able to touch into those blueprints, that blueprint which you were speaking about, the blueprint of how the masculine and feminine can interact, and henceforth, you know, we've ended up with conflict, with the chaos that we see nowadays going on between men and women in general.
For sure. There was so much ritual and juju and intention put into us forgetting, us being okay with being extracted from, us being disoriented about, you know, not just who we are, but our relationship with nature, you know, because we see all this in nature too, especially when we get to I talked about this in my last YouTube video, but it's like our queer community, we love to keep them out of conversation, and people love to be like, but it's not natural. And I'm like, tell me you didn't watch Natural Geographic growing up without telling me it. Like, it reflects nature first and foremost, but on a deeper level, I'll pause there.
Are you sure? It sounded like you was about to go somewhere.
No. Yeah.
Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna, you know, get my charger into my
Yeah,
phone because
yeah,
I've just seen a message. 2 seconds. Okay, I've got the wire, and here we go.
What I was gonna say before I
Yes.
pause was just like going back to what your original question of just like, yeah, there was so much intention put into us disconnecting from that. And so we love to focus, and I feel like the focus has been on like reconnecting with self, which is important, you know, like that is number one, like the focus and primary where we should be throwing a lot of our efforts. And once we get that though, I feel like it should naturally lead to like, well, how do you work within the interactions of other people? And romantic relationship is a part of that. So, you know, when we get to blueprints about relationships, yeah, we make it a lot harder and shouldn't be this hard.
That it needs to be.
You know?
That is true. That is true. I mean, I had a conversation. Bear with me 1 moment. I had a conversation with somebody recently. And we were talking, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, we were talking about the belief systems of the world, and you know, he was really sort of railing against the belief systems that were related to nature, related to you know, in favor of other belief systems which were related more to a book, or you know, and so forth. Like, and you know, obviously anybody can believe what they want to believe, but my thing was always that, you know, if we valued and revered the wind, the rivers, the sun, these things, we would have like a wonderful, much more wonderful world, I think, in terms of climate change and all these other things which are sort of coming up because the world is out of balance. You know, we would have had a much more balanced world. So it strikes me as really perverse that, you know, people would say it's bad to worship these things or to revere these things. You know, I don't know if you got a perspective on that, but that was just a thing I'd realized and seen.
That's such a, it makes my heart hurt that it's not just, you know, we prefer the written word, but there's no value in nature based. Like that's deep because I've done my research on the Bible and who wrote what and which council was responsible for putting certain things in the Bible
Shout
and
out to
words
Council
that were changed.
Nosa.
Listen, that was my thing. I'm like, do not speak to me until you can tell me why these set of men were able to take certain books, especially to take the book of Mary out, the one riding with Jesus, the whole. Anyways, like I said, don't get me started. But to really look into who wrote these books, when were they written, what language were they written in, are what is it, the midrash and the original like text and translations of these books. For me, all that really says is my diary is sacred word. Your diary, everything that you are writing, that is sacred word. If that was somebody's account, quote unquote, if they would love us to believe that this was some of certain happenings, then our journals, our diaries, like they are just as important, you know? And so that makes sense to me when it comes back to nature because I love getting into specifically the South of America and our history with hoodoo. And when it comes to specifically the time period, like post-enslavement, but like pre-integration, we're
I'm
really in
still
the
here,
South.
sorry.
Oh, no. You still good?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm
Okay.
so I'm just plugging in my charger, so please carry on.
Oh, good. But it's like, what were we doing in these backwoods and these swamps, you know, to make life function? We had our gardens. We were able to talk to the wind. Like wind divination is a thing, you know. So when we talk about, oh, we talk to the wind, we can hear the wind, we can pause and feel all the essences. That was a whole divination system that is a whole divination system for us, you know. When it comes to throwing bones, that is nature. We're like the decomposition of bones, like to garner them, cowries. Where does that come from? Nature, like our divination system. Like, get out of here. I'm sorry. No, not to disrespect your friend, but
Well, he wasn't. He was a guy. He was essentially he was a Muslim guy that I met on the train, and we just had
he said
a
I don't
conversation.
claim him. That's not my friend.
Yeah. So, yeah. I met him once. Okay. So, but yeah. Um. So okay, wind divination, you know, is something I haven't heard of that. What is the wind divination?
So that's basically being able to tap into the wind. And I'm going to let people go do their own research because I'm also a big favor of like gatekeeping. And if you're supposed to know, you're supposed to know. But it's basically divination is being able to read energies, to receive a message or direction, advice, counsel upon what we're supposed to do next. And so in Ifa, we go to the Opwele and they cast divination for us. For do the Orisha, they do cowries. A lot of people are doing tarot nowadays for personal or for others in terms of divination, but it's really just tapping into energy, essences, gods, deities, for counsel, advice. What should I do next? You know, give me insight. What do you see in my peripherals, in my aura, in my essence, in my energy that I have, you know, been blind to? So yeah, we are powerful people when we can tap in. Everything is talking to us. I don't believe in that whole like everything is talking to us all the time shit. I truly believe spirit has its own, you know, thing going on, and it is not always concerned about what the fuck Janiece is doing. Excuse my language, but I truly believe when we tap in and we have specific intentions, there's always an answer available to us for sure.
I hear you. I hear you. There was something which somebody said to me when it came to divination, which
Mm-hmm.
you know what you just said reminded me of, in terms of yes, you know, divination is important because, you know, as I mentioned before, as we spoke about before, you know, this is a massive universe that we exist in, and there's so many things and so many possibilities. So we have to, you know, find ways to tap into that higher source of knowledge. Um, Also, as well, you know, my friend did speak to me, and he spoke, and this is my friend, not the other guy, but he spoke to me about how, you know, a lot of there's the divination which is through the tools such as the cowries, such as, you know, the oponifa, and et cetera, et cetera. There's that divination, but then there's also divination which is in your life in terms of, you know, just this, in the same way that you said that you were a shrine, a vessel, an altar for the Orisha. You know, my friend also spoke about us being our own divination tools, in terms of like, you know, on one level, you know, you feel a certain way, and, you know, it tells you to go this way, and you say, okay, I gotta go this way, not this way. On another
Yeah.
level, there are patterns that we have in our lives, you know, and, and essentially, because, you know, obviously with Ifa, you have stories which are then sort of related to people's lives, you know, uh, which is used to give them direction. But within your life, you have patterns and you have stories which are reoccurring, and cycles, which, if you're able to understand, you are able to almost use your life experience as a divination tool. I don't know if that makes any sense, or if that chimes with anything that you have experienced.
Yeah, we are our first, you know, our Ori, what we call it, but it's like our Ori is the first and primary source of who we should be trusting in terms of what do I do next. You know, it's that gut instinct. We be knowing. And yes, there are instances and cases, you know, in which we go for divination to tap into bigger energies for sure. But Ori, she knows. And it's so funny that you talk about the pattern recognition, because I love to think that everything is math. When we look at sacred geometry, when we look at how this earth works, when we talk about nature, it's all math because it's all patterns, right? Which means to some level that there is a predictability. Because even chaos, even random, like that's a pattern. So as somebody who regularly, you know, taps into divination, and because it's not divination and doing the whole getting readings and all of that is bigger than just what's my next steps. Sometimes I know my next steps, but there's spiritual hygiene and tapping into spirit, of being like, spirit, I know you're working on my behalf. So this is my offering so that you are able to clear the path for me. You know, I know I need to move to Mexico. And so I need you to be like, you got my back when I move to Mexico. And they might come in and be like, yeah, so when you move though, you might, you know, get a little interference at the what is it called? At the airport. Make sure you got your shit aligned. Thanks, Spirit. You know, this is why we go when we tap in. But I wasn't questioning my next move, you know. So it's when we get to the point, as my godfather says, when we're over here and we're constantly asking, and we're more caught up in other spirits and entities having the answers before we do. That's when Eshu comes in and he's like, oh, you want to sit here and trust other people outside of yourself? All right, let's play. And that's when confusion and, you know, the twisting of the mind, and we go left real quick because you didn't just sit down and shut up and trust yourself. Like, you knew the answer. Why are you spending all this money and all this energy to like Like you wasting time at this point. And I feel like Eshu, I love Eshu. One of my favorite aspects of Eshu is like, don't waste my time. Like, we got shit to do. Let's go. He talks about, you know, him being the messenger and like him being the energy to take our offerings to the heavens. Like, what are you sitting here asking 50,000 questions for? So, yeah, we definitely are our own divination system first and foremost. But it goes back into, are you tapped in? Are you eating well enough? Are you moving that energy outside of your body, you know? Or are you carrying all of this excess energy of things that you haven't let go? The traumas, the emotions, the grief, you know? I'll pause there.
I see. I really, and I think I said this to you before. Yeah, I really love you. Generally, how your mind works here, because I can literally see, you know, I can see it more, yeah, but I can see it, you know, just like, you know, going in and out of different sort of like ideas and flowing really, really fluently. So, you know, I've been, you know, discussing a lot of your ideas and a lot of our ideas and a lot of your thoughts as well, which I think is, you know, really amazing. And that's why I've really been on that. But you know, returning back to, I really want to return back to your experience, and your personal experience. And so I wanted to understand how, you know, since, you know, being pre-initiation and after initiation, or pre sort of like being in touch with the ancestors and the Orisa, how that's affected your art, how that, because you are an artist, you know, you paint, and you know, I'm sure there's a million other art forms that you practice, but how that's affected it, and how does that feed into your art practice, but also your entrepreneurial endeavors, and so forth.
Yeah. And I feel like we're gonna have to have like multiple of these. And like I can't believe we've already been on for an hour.
And
But
now, yeah, we are, because I'm, you know, there's so many things I could still ask you, but I know
I
that we're gonna, you know, wrap up soon. But yeah.
To answer your question though, and this like always sobers me up so quickly, because before I got into ancestor veneration and before I got into Orisa, Ifa, all this jazz, um, the first step is always Ori. And when we talk about connecting with our Ori and connecting with ourselves and connecting with our bodies, like that can be a very jarring experience when there are so many forces that benefit off of you being disconnected from your body. And so that integration period was very rough for me. And so being introduced to these practices and these ways of life and these cultures, it really taught me at the core of things that I was a co-creator of my destiny, you know? And so when you talk about how did this affect your art, I stopped drawing for a very long time. And then it's still weird because it's like, do I consider myself an artist? Yeah, no. Like I draw, I paint, I emote. But it's like I stopped doing that for a very long time, you know, college, Disney, all that jazz, because of how fast I was moving. And it's like the minute I was able to slow down and be like, well, what does Janiece want? You know, I'm not just meant to be out here mass producing for others. And that was a very hard process for me. Because there's, you know, when you're taught, when you go to business school and and you're taught like, yo, I'm about to be out here, I'm about to like take over the world, guys. Like I'm about to be just society's version of successful. You're not gonna tell me differently. I was on that path. I had Christianity, which was society's, you know, acceptable religion. In certain rooms, that is social currency, you know? I did everything right. I had the right partners next to me. I had the right words. We was out here. And then it was like, well, let's pause. What does Janiece want? And let's integrate that back into our daily practice and your essence of who you are. And that's been the biggest, like, oh shit. And it's an ongoing process, you know, like even now if you go look at my websites, they're still coming together. I have no problem being seen trying right now. You know, I barely quit my little corporate job that I, you know, was chief of operations that I was going to be at for forever. I was barely like 2023. Yeah, these are all new. But I've been practicing, you know, Ifan, and all of this happened, what, within the last like decade of being introduced to ancestors and myself. And so, yeah, when you talk about how did it affect my art, how did it affect my businesses, it's like, I feel like it's extracting more of myself instead of what others want for me. And for someone like me, somebody who was raised to do everything right, yeah, that's not always the most gentle process. So I'm being very gentle with myself now, and I'm allowing myself to fail and be messy and not know what I'm talking about sometimes because I have to talk. I have to speak up. I have to be uncomfortable. I have to be in positions like this because I've also done a lot of really cool fucking things in that process of trying, you know? So I just, with the integration of Oya, I feel like she has led me to being more gentle with myself as I try and as I do all the things because a lot of people don't understand it, you know, especially moving against the grain of like what I was taught. As quickly as I move, like you said, you could see the ways in which my mind is working. And then I'm a Sagittarius, so you're not gonna tell me no, I'm gonna do it. I might butt my head, so it's just like I'm gonna do it. And so I'm learning to be gentle with myself in the process of just like I did it. I
Because
didn't die.
because on a personal level, you know, I've got a couple more things before we wrap it up. But
Yeah.
on a personal level, on a social level, you know, you talked about growing up a certain way. You talked about growing up in a different faith, and you know, sort of like going against where everybody else, I guess, in your near surroundings were doing. You know, so you know, again, I can imagine that must have been quite difficult, you know, for you. Were there, I guess, you know, you come into being, you know, you have your god sisters, you have your godfathers, and so forth. So there's also another sort of social community. But you know, as you've gone through this change, and as you're going through this change, you know, what kind of like social changes do you feel have happened or have not happened? You know, is it just, you know, the same?
Oh yeah, no, complete 180. I'm like, what are the friends I had before this? I'm like, where they at though? But again, that's an energy thing. That's a my aura has changed, and what I valued before and what I was attracting, what I had my eyes set on, that is changed drastically, you know? And so as I'm now in this process of integrating all of the spiritual work that's been done, you know, we don't go and get all these messages of who we are without integrating into them. And that takes time. So that's also like a huge piece of like my Ifa initiation, you know, my Oya initiation, like this is going to be something I'm going to be integrating for my life. And so it's constantly feel like it washed away all the wahala. I washed away all of the any and everything that does not serve that, and it gave me a blank slate, you know. We talk about we shave our heads to be like newborns. There's lots of discourse and lots of opinions about going bald for initiation, but it's like to start from scratch and to integrate with my destiny, you know. I hope I'm not around people who benefited from that old Janiece, you know? I hope that I am continuing to attract, as I integrate, as I'm able to be seen trying and failing and integrating. I'm like, I hope that it continues to be a 180 of who I'm surrounded. And I'm like trying to speak my words carefully because losing people, grieving people, it sucks, but it's also never ending. And, you know, I have a number of people that I'm grieving right now who just weren't able to go into this new season. But you know what? Before we go on to the next question or topic, I'm like, that wasn't the hard part, bro. The hard part is telling the truth. And when we are shown just how dysfunctional certain shit is that we come from, and I talk about the communities, the families, the ways of life, the societies, it's like there's always bound to be some shit. And when we stop calling out that shit, that's when the harm happens. And I feel like me being propelled into my destiny, me revealing more about my destiny, me knowing more about it, it's made it harder to shut up and just let the bullshit continue. And so it was no question, or I was when it was revealed that I was almost trying to go first and primarily, like I was like, oh no, this makes sense, because the divine rage that comes with the bullshit and just how like okay people are with it, you know. And this happens wherever. So even as you were saying, like the new community with my godparents or my you know, people in Nigeria or the people that I am integrating with, we're human. So there's always going to be bullshit. But it's having the tools to speak up and be accountable, to call people out, call people in, you know, in love, to be like, hey, I'm being your mirror right now. You're not on your shit, Janiece. And I'd be like, oh, okay, well, you right. let me pivot and get back on my path, you know. When people aren't doing that, that is what I no longer want to be a part of. That's what I hope that's old Janiece shit. Keep me away from people who are not in alignment with the truth.
Yeah. There's a lot of humility in kind of the way you've spoken and the way that you've spoken about almost, you know, from a level of almost being humbled by the experiences that you have, but also being empowered, you know, at the same time, which I think is really, really deep. So on that, I wanted to, so a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago exactly, actually, yeah. This is going to be the last thing I'm going to ask, because you know I know that I could go on with you for a while, and we need to do a sequel. But 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, a friend of my friend's mother died, and I've known this woman for like 20 years plus. You know, she's like a mother, second mother, and it was interesting because I remember going sort of like to the funeral and seeing her in, you know, because they had like a period where they opened up the casket and you could see her face, and just trying to understand, you know, the person who I was speaking to 2 weeks prior, you know, full of life and there, versus the person now, or the body now. Um, and there's something which you said, which was really interesting to me on one of your things, which made me think of this again in terms of, you know, our attitudes to death in this modern age, in this society. It's almost like we're cutting it away. It's almost like, you know, it's because as I was looking at her, I was realizing, well, not realizing I know this, but you know, it was in my face. This is going to be you, you know, someday. This is going to be everybody someday. Um, and there's a lot in there to take. But I guess the question I'm thinking about is, how does, you know, how is your experiences? How has, you know, connection to the ancestors, connection to Oya, who also has a connection with this, like, how has this informed your opinion of death and how you relate to it, and how do you relate to death, and is there anything about dying or death that is a different perspective that you would want people to have, that most people don't have?
I got you. I got you. One of my favorite topics. Yeah, so the video for those watching, I'm like, for reference, I just did a video on my YouTube channel called Underworld Mobbin, Intro into the Art of Dying and Ancestor Veneration. And so I got to talk to a friend about just what would it look like to talk about death, to think about death, to prepare for death, and mentally, like, imagine ourselves when we're dead and gone. How do we want to be remembered? And so my relationship with death, I am comfortable now. I don't like body fluids. Like you can keep all of those. But when it comes to the actual talking about it and the importance of it, there's a whole segment that there's so much that's coming. Of just like how I believe when we don't know how to die, we don't know how to live. And I know that's such a cliche like phrase, but I'm like, we don't know how to die within the United States. We don't know how to die within the Black community. We spend way too much fucking money on it. I'm like, why is it in the thousands to bury somebody in the ground to never see again? Somebody who's absent with the body and present with the Lord according to certain traditions. Why is it so fucking expensive to die to where families are bleeding out, starting GoFundMe's? This is one of the most tragic times, and this is, what kind of compelled me to becoming a death doula. I'm like, there's too many emotions to process, and people process death differently. You got somebody who's over here laughing, someone who's over here crying and can't stop crying, somebody who doesn't want anything to do with it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to see it. Don't talk to me about it. I'm going to go over here, mind my business, And so a lot of my upbringing definitely influenced it. And so I'll tell like my favorite, I guess, experience to kind of make it cute because, like you said, there's more to come. Well, two pieces. So, and we even asked like our godfather because Oya within the diaspora is closely related to the cemetery, and I have my thoughts about it, but it differs from Isheshe tradition on the compound in Nigeria, right? And so she is closely related. Her domain, they say, is the cemetery. I did not know this growing up. Again, I didn't know I was Omo Oya until like recently. But looking back, I'm like, oh shit, that makes sense. Because growing up, we had a lot of like tragic deaths within our family. And I talked about this in the video. And it was somehow like one after the other. But there were certain like things where my uncle died the year after I was born. And so there's like stories of me being in my little play kitchen playing by myself, and my mom came in to ask and was like, who are you talking to, sweetie? And I like said Uncle Jack, and she just like closed the door slowly and went about her business because they didn't talk about Uncle Jack. How would you know that name? You wouldn't. I'm gonna go mind my business. But again, we're also known, the four of us were very like intuitive, freaky woo-woo children when it came to like spiritual encounters. So that was kind of the upbringing. Then my grandmother died, and then not my grandmother, my great grandmother passed away, my great uncle. And so we were at funerals a lot. Then my best friend's mother passed away. And then in the ninth grade, my brother passed away. And this was like my twin, like locked in. They say we're born in separate twins. And so you had my oldest brother, Terrence, and then my brother, Jonathan, me, and then my little sister. And so my brother, Jonathan, and my little sister, they look alike. They're both lighter. They both are, and yes, if they watch this, they are both natural geniuses who just, you had to force to do stuff. How you gonna fail out of, middle school because you didn't do your homework? Smarter than me, the person who had to work hard for a B, But that was Terrence and I. We were darker. We got the same nose. We laughed the same. We're people persons, We don't mind going out and starting conversations. And so there was also stories of like, he was waiting for his little sister. When Jonathan was born, he was like, "Hi, we're taking him to the police station. This isn't my little sister." And so I just remember growing up and us being locked in very interesting ways, you know. That was my best friend. And so when he passed, it was like earth-shattering for our community, because what do you mean the light of this world isn't here anymore? And so through my experiences, though, I'm like, oh, this man needed to go to the spiritual realm so we could lock in, because we had things to do. One of the funniest things that we would say is like, I don't know if you ever saw this show, I forgot the name of it, but he would be like Pinky and I'd be like the brain, or depending on the situation. Yeah, it'd be reversed. And so I'd be like, well, what are we doing tonight, Pinky? Same thing we do every night, try to take over the world. And so that was my right hand, you know, and him transitioning has helped me through some of the like wildest things. His scholarship that he had, the full ride that he had, went to the next person in our family who went to college. That was me. I could be debts, you know, in terms of student debt, and I'm not, because of my brother's work and accomplishments. The very first reading I got was me messing around in the French Quarter and in New Orleans. And the first thing that she said was, you have somebody on the spiritual realm, a young man who passed before his time, vouching for you. His energy is strong. He don't play about you. And I was like, yeah, I know. The second reading I had ever got, which was years later and right before I really dived into all of this ancestor veneration and Ifa, they also pinpointed it. And they were just like, you have this energy around you, this protection. And I'm like, yeah. And so when things started popping off with my family, because remember how I was saying, when we start doing ancestor veneration, we start calling upon names and activating, you know, with our voice, because that's how this world was created, through voice and tone and sound. And so when we start activating those names and those stories, we are activating healing, and we're activating the trauma within our families. The shit we love to say, you know, people don't want to talk about, what goes on in this house stays within this house. You know, that's what they start massaging and working and bringing to the light. And Terrence was right there with me the whole time, and I was having dreams in which, like the same way you are sitting here right now, probably him in person though, is the dreams that I was having of how to navigate that really shitty period of time. And so obviously I have way more, you know, examples and other ancestors who have made it known of just like, what's up, baby girl, we missed you, like we're so glad you're bringing light to this, you know. And whether or not it's clairvoyance, I've smelt, you know, ancestors before. I feel like it has allowed me to like have one foot in this world and another foot in that world. And yeah, and I give thanks. I give thanks because it could be something that we could be scared of, you know, something that we could call demons, as certain religions would love to believe, of just like, no, absent with the body's present with the Lord. They're unconscious, they're resting. You know, if you smell your grandma, if you're talking to your grandma, that's a demon trying to act like them to get you off your path. Like, spirits just have things to do. It's not always about you. Sorry, I'm like veering off. But yeah, I feel like my experience of growing up also taught me how to take care of my dead. We went to the cemetery with my grandparents a lot, you know, and it wasn't some weird thing. We went, we got flowers, we cleaned the gravestones, we talked about our funny experiences and our memories, and we went and got ice cream. And that was my sister and I's like monthly ritual with my grandparents. My parents didn't really go with it. My mom loved to be like, I got enough to worry about taking care of the living, you know? What do I need to be at the cemetery for? Taking care of the dead. So now when it comes to being an advocate for death, being a death doula, being an, you know, an Oya devotee, it's like we need to embrace this, especially after COVID. I'm very passionate about, I worked in healthcare, and these nurses are traumatized. And then these doctors, this healthcare profession, they are traumatized from what they saw during COVID. The mass amount of death. We talk about, you know, bodies not having enough room for them and just having to put them in giant ice trucks because of the mass amount of death that we saw that was preventable because of knowledge and talking. And so when we talk about the truth and preventing it, you know, and now you got the bird flu, and I don't know, I don't want to kick off this live, but you have things that are percolating. Like we said, a lot of people are feeling this energy of knowing that change is coming. Things are in the others, you know? And I'm just like, how much death could we prevent by one, preparing, having our wills in place? You know, this is what happens when I transition. This is who gets my house. This is who gets my property, my car, my mattress. Yo, just because you don't have 40 acres and a mule, as some people are learning about now, thanks to Kendrick, I'm like, sorry, and I'm almost done yapping. I'm gonna wrap it up, I promise. Just because you don't have that does not mean you should not have a will. If you have a favorite pair of leather boots, you know, that would fit somebody else, where are they going to? What, if you were to transition, this is when I had a roommate, I'm like, my mattress, I spent a lot of fucking money on that. What's going to happen to it, you know, when I transition, or if something were to happen to me? And so a lot of people don't realize, like, when we don't create plans and put plans into place, we default to the state. And that is how confusion happens. That is how disarray and disorganization, while we are trying to grieve, now I have to plan a state plan on top of that. I have to take care of the accounts and the debt of my, which don't be taking on people's debt. Rule number one of dying too. But it's like our elders are dying, and it's like you didn't put nothing into place, so I can't even grieve you. I can't even sit with my feelings and be sad, because now I'm propelled into this version of adulthood that, like, there's no finances for, so now I'm broke. I'm not broke, but we're not gonna speak that. But now I'm, like, you know, in a very disheveled state of place because there was no planning put into place. So yeah, I'm very passionate about death and talking about it because, like you said, there's so many layers to it. There's dealing with, hey, this person who was here is not here anymore, and hey, you know, now I have to estate plan when this was not even my estate. I don't even know how they ran this stuff. I have no clue where their policy numbers are, where their attorney's numbers are. How did they even get this started? So now you got a whole property that's about to be sold to the market for a penny or less because there was not proper planning into place. And when we talk about that movement of energy within our bodies because we weren't able to grieve, that's a whole nother segment that I will get into. It crystallizes, and that grief that we're not able to process creates sickness. And that is how in 12th grade, I had whole ass heart surgery because of unprocessed grief and unprocessed all the things. So I refuse for that to be my story anymore, which means I'm gonna talk about it when I'm sad. I'm gonna talk about, hey, this makes me uncomfortable. I'm not having a good time, you know, or I'm sad, or I remember my brother and I'm having a moment, or I'm feeling these things in my body. I'm gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna encourage others to talk about it because I'm not losing another person prematurely to unprocessed grief. So we'll pause there.
You know, Janiece, you know, when you speak, and I love, again, like I said, I love the streams of consciousness that you have when you speak, and there's so much to get into, or that I could get into. But first and foremost, I want to say, thank you for sharing that about, your brother, especially. I could see how much you loved him, and you love him because he's in a different, like you said, he's transitioned. He's in a different form right now. So again, thank you for sharing that. And so, because it's hard, yeah, again, because I'm going, I don't want to go into 10 different questions and 10 different directions because you know, when we talk next, I want to talk about your experiences in Nigeria. I want to talk about um, being the death doula, because you know you just sprung that upon me, and you're like, you know, this is another one of the 10 million things I do. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about so many other things as well, and there's a lot of things that I could still go into. But just to put a bow in it for this one,
For
um,
sure.
as you were talking right now, I was listening, and you're talking about death and the relationship to death and people understanding death. And it struck me when we talk about Oya being the owner of the marketplace. You may have said this already, but Oya being an owner of the marketplace, you know, the marketplace almost being a transitional place, being a place where people come and go, they don't stay. And then we have Oya's relationship, specifically in the diaspora, to death, and how that sort of like, you know, so it struck me as, you know, the marketplace almost being something, or being a metaphor for death, essentially. Um, so that made me sort of like think about how that connection of Oya to death could have arisen. Now, taking that further, what are, you know, let's say 3 things that you would like people to know um, about Oya, about Ifa, um, and 3 things that somebody who's interested in getting into this, you know, understanding the spirituality, getting closer to this spirituality, like, what are 3 things that you would like them to know before they take that leap?
Okay. Um, I want to address real quick too before we move into that, how you said how the misconceptions came to be. I personally believe it was her being the wind on a very like microscopic level. That's the breath, right? That is a very, like, when you think about what is wind, what is that in between space, which is why my show is called The Whole In Between. When we talk about molecules and how they don't stop moving because you cannot create nor destroy energy, you know, it's always constantly moving. And so when we talk about Oya being at the center of that, I believe she, between that relationship between life and death and it being that single breath, that's one way, you know, that we in the diaspora created this, you know. 2, her being the one who gave birth to Egungun, which is ancestors. And so there's a whole anecdote and story about that. That's also the relationship between her and death is, yeah, we locked in. You, my children, we. That's how she became kind of like the Grim Reaper, almost, of just like having reigns of the underworld. Because when they transition back into this world, the marketplace, which we call Earth, because heaven is home and Earth is the marketplace, right? And so when they transition back, if Oya is the one in charge of that wind, in charge of that breath, in that certain particular way, because I know there are other Orisha who are in charge of creation in different ways. That's how she came to it. And then another last piece of that is in Nigeria, from what I've seen and what I witnessed, we don't have cemeteries. We are buried within our homes. It
Yeah.
was so great to go see. We went to pay homage to our godfather's father, you know, in his home.
Yeah.
And he was buried in the ground.
My
And so,
granddad is in the house as well. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
yes. So when you think about it, when you leave, you know, the motherland and you come into the diaspora and mass graves are being created because they are not like disposing of our bodies properly. We don't even have homes. Fuck a, you know, being buried within a, what is it, the slave quarters? And so they're throwing us in the back in the woods, unmarked graves, you know? So when we start to associate that with ancestry and with, okay, if I need to go talk to, that's where the body is. Because there's also something within the African traditional religions where they don't want their like cremation, they want their body. It's very important. I'm also not going to take away from that. There's also, when it comes to ritual of dying, there's very particular things that have to be done with the body. So I'm not going to take away from that. But the body is important, and where it's buried is important. And so if we didn't have that, you know, when we came over to the Americas, and the cemetery is now the marker of the place of communing with the dead, oh yeah, you know? So, but again, there's so many levels to it. And again, I believe we in the diaspora, we're poets. We're poets by heart because we come from Nigerians. And when you learn Yoruba, we learn how many layers there are to this fucking language. It's so poetic and dreamy, and they have words for everything, you know? So that is how we get caught up in the like, oh, no, oh yeah, she's this and this and this, you know? So to end, and if there's anything, I don't think I have three things, but I have one thing. When it comes to these traditions, when it comes to these Orisa, when it comes to these practices, when it comes to these babalaos and these Iyanifas and these Iles and these, you know, folks who are claiming to know everything, be careful and know that you are your own first shrine. Like for real. Like when my children's walk into our family shrine room, you know, on our family property that we got to set up, they're gonna have the opportunity to go to Oya themselves, and then they're gonna have the opportunity to go to the Opa Iku, which is the ancestor shrine, and they're gonna have the opportunity to call upon the name of Janiece, you know, and they're gonna be like, Janiece, I'm about to travel. What do I need to know? You know, like hype me up, great grandma. I'm about to like fall in love, and you know, I'm past childbirthing age. Like, put me onto the game. How did you, you know, do X, Y, and Z? And whether I come and speak or not, they're gonna be able to look at my well-documented story of how I did this shit, you know? And so my whole business, Witness in Color, is centered around like you matter, you're important. It is your job to add to the canon. You have certain things in you that only you can add. And me as a person who's in community with you, I cannot thrive as a whole if you're not on your shit. So get on it. I want to thrive. I want to be healthy. I want to be whole. I'm not meant to do everything. I cannot do everything. I don't want to do everything. My ancestors did everything and they're tired. And they said, Janiece, you are going to have the blessings of doing only what you are meant to do in this lifetime. That's it. That's all. You're going to be able to rest. You're going to be able to get 10 hours of sleep because women need more. You're going to be able to travel. You're going to be able to take your vacation. You're going to be able to turn your phone off because you're not meant to do everything. But that means I need you, sir, on the other side of the screen, doing what the fuck you're supposed to be doing, you know? Yeah, you're the one curating these conversations. You're the one documenting these, you know, traditions in a certain way that's going to bring us, you know, with this technology, with the way that you are working this AI. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love these visuals. I can't do that as an artist, you know? You're doing things that I'm not meant to do. So that's my biggest takeaway. Like, you are the new ancestors in the making, the new Orisha in the making. Because Odu is a living, breathing Orisha. You know, these anecdotes, these stories. It doesn't stop at the you know, what do they call it? The power, the seven. It doesn't stop at Oshun, Ogun, Shango, Oya, Obatala, Oshosi. It doesn't stop there. It's the 401, meaning N1. There's endless. My brother Terrence is an Orisha to me. He is so powerful and works so specifically within my life, you know, and he is so specific, and he will be memorialized for forever. As long as I have anything to do with it, that man's name's gonna live for forever, as well as my other ancestors, you know. So get to it. You got work to do. We have
You being I'm sorry. We you just said about um, we are the ancestors. We are the new ancestors. That we are the continuity in everything that's come, everything that's come, and everything that is to come. I think is beautiful. Um, just um, before we run off this, I just want to. So, firstly, yeah, thank you for everybody who came on, from Jalen to Sophia to everybody, to Daphne, um, and Baby CC 2023 just asked a question, which, before, well, I want to do that question, and I want you to tell us after that about the holy in between, and the other project which you're working on, which I'd love for you to tell everybody about, and also to let them know how they can contact you and get in contact with you and find out about the stuff you're doing, because you're doing some amazing, amazing things. And everything that you're doing, what I love so much about the stuff that you do is how it's all sort of like tied to you. Like, it's Janiece. Like, sometimes people are doing a business and it's a business, but it's like, I look at you and I see daughter of Oya, deaf jeweler. I'm like, okay, this works. I see the holy in between. I'm like, okay, this all connects. It all just feels natural and authentic. So I'd love for you to really get into that. But yeah, for Shmoney Bags, Baby CC, could you just ask, I don't know, if you could, go over that question before you go into the things you're doing, about, do you have to get initiated? Because I think Shmoney Bags was, I think he was thinking about getting initiated. He's really deeply connected to Oya. We
Okay.
spoke briefly on Facebook.
Yeah.
And yeah, so if you could just, like, for his purposes, just go into that, if you have to get initiated, or what the process is like with that.
I would always say, like, what's the equation? It's Ori, ancestors, and then the land that connects you to. And so if your Ori is already tapping you into this energy, and the energy of Oya, not Oya the Orisha, to worship and to, we're not looking for more cults to join, or we're not looking for places to put our energy. We're looking for energies to integrate into our lives. And so if the energy of Oya is calling you, I always say divination, going and finding an elder, or letting an elder find you, because I'm also a big advocate of stay off of these internet streets. Make it well known that is your intention, to know if this is your next step, because with initiation comes protection. It comes a clearing of roads. It comes an integration with energy that, I don't have right now. And so now that I have it, now that I am initiated, it's like, oh, all this spiritual work went into me being on my path. I don't identify solely as a devotee of Oya, and that's all my life is dedicated to. No, me being initiated helped me fine tune and really dig even deeper into who I am and what I'm meant to be doing. So go get a divine dawn, go talk to some elders. And if you don't have any, I have some great people to connect you to. I love my godfather. I love my godfathers that, all the way back to who we connect with in Nigeria as well. I trust them as both a woman, as both somebody who was new to this and not raised in this. So I have elders that I can refer you to. I do not know everything. I'm proud to say that, but I have good people to refer you to. So that's first and foremost. You think that's a good place?
Yeah,
Are we good?
yeah. I think that works, and I think, again, you can put your information
Okay, yeah.
down, so that he can contact you in relation to the elders, etc.
For sure. So outside of this, my business professionally, Witness in Color, that is where, there's a business side and a newly added transitional coaching because, you know, like I was saying, I want people in their role. I'm not meant to do everything. I'm an eldest daughter, so I know that role very well and I don't want it anymore. Y'all can have it. So with everyone being in their role, I help with business plans, website creation. I'm like your first, like, let's get it. And then I can connect you to the 7-figure marketer teams and the 7-figure, like, business coaches that'll take you to this atmosphere. But to get started, I'm like, let's go, let's lock in. And even if you don't know what that is quite yet, like, that's okay. And that's where the coaching comes into place. The whole in between.
So before you go to the holy in between, could you just again specify the business and where people can find that first business?
Yeah,
Witness in
witnessandcolor.com.
Color, yes.
I'm in the middle of a rebrand right now, so when it comes to socials, just give me a second. I'm in the trenches and I'm putting in the work. As those of us who know with socials, they'll get it when we get it, but we're putting in the work right now. So if you want to work together, the email is info@witnessincolor.com. I get to witness incredible people doing incredible things. So that's that. Okay.
Awesome.
And so the kind of artsy fartsy parts of this is Amoka Dreams, which is becoming my hub of just emoting. And so the whole in between is a show making the taboo into daily ritual, in which we talk about death, which we talk about travel, herbs, ancestor veneration, just doing things outside of the norm. It's fairly new. And so just give me 5 minutes, guys. Like, if there's anything that this talk has shown, it's that there's a whole empire up here that I am actively working on conjuring into this physical world. So I'm excited for the journey. I'm excited that it's been connecting me with people like this, to have conversations like this. I'm super grateful. So let's lock in. I thrive off of community and new connection, and I travel. So yeah. I'm not meant to live this life alone, so let's get it.
Well, it's been a massive pleasure just knowing you, and I am really excited to see what happens with you going forward. I'm really excited to talk to you because I'm gonna get you and make sure you're back on, because like I said, there's like a million things that I can go into with you. And again, I think that there's a lot to offer, and I think there's a lot that you have to offer, and a lot you have to teach people who are interested in a path. And again, I love the fact that you're a deaf doula. You essentially facilitate businesses and facilitate entrepreneurs, which I think is a beautiful thing as well. So yeah, like, do you act, by the way? Have any? Because it's just the way that you're so fluid with emotions and stuff and expressions. It's it's beautiful. But anyway, thank you once again for coming on. And let's do
what? Wait. Yeah. Are we gonna speak that to, since I can't act? Hell, you hiring for any jobs for your next roles and your next movies?
I mean,
I'm not gonna block my blessings.
Let's talk, because I'm all about synchronicity and about about this natural ability and connection. So I'd love to discuss doing something, doing a crazy.
Sure.
Beautiful. All right, then. So thank you again, Janiece Jenkins on IG. Please hit her up for any questions, and she's gonna be back on here again. We're gonna talk again very soon. I really enjoyed it, so I hope you have a great day. and we'll talk soon.
All right, talk soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Peace. Bye. Bye, everybody.